for now, let's shift our attention to the stories that have made headlines in the Sunday newspapers this afternoon. To do that, I'm joined by Professor Mare, who is head of the Department of Communication and Media in the Faculty of Humanities at the University of Johannesburg. Good afternoon to you, Prof. It's great to be in your company. We'll get into the conversation in just a moment, but I want to float the front pages of the three newspapers, the Sunday newspapers that we are focusing on. The first one is the Sunday Times. It leads with a story that says Enoch's Josie ultimatum, and that is to do with the state of finances in the city of Johannesburg and what the Minister of Finance has said about that. We'll come back to that in a moment. Let's see the next newspaper headline that we have. I believe it should be the Sunday Tribune out of KwaZulu-Natal, and that newspaper, let's see what is on the front page of that. It says KZN's cabinet in balance as Premier probes MECs. KZN cabinet in balance as Premier probes MECs. That has to do with the two MECs who are in a spot of bother with the Premier Tamintuli out in KwaZulu-Natal, and we'll get into that conversation in a moment. Lastly, let's show you what's leading on the Sunday World, and that has cops hacked Ramaphosa's inbox. If you rewind a few years back, it was the build-up to the ANC's elective conference in 2017 when the contents of the emails of then Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, now President Cyril Ramaphosa, were leaked to the media. That's where you get that nickname that says Cupcake. That's where it started. That's where it all started, from the contents of those emails. So we're getting a bit more detail now in terms of how that came about. All right, let's get into the conversation, Prof. And thank you for joining me once again. Let's start with that story on the Sunday Times that they are leading with this afternoon. It talks about the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana and his warning to the Mayor of Johannesburg, Dada Morero. Does it signal anything that the Minister of Finance has reached a point where he feels he needs to write to the Mayor of Johannesburg about the parlous state of the city's finances?
Thank you so much, Tulosizwe, for having me. Certainly, I think this is the right time, for the Minister to read the Riot Act, so to say. I think you know that the ANC knows that they are going for a referendum, so to speak, next year. If you're looking at the local government elections that are coming next year, they are pretty much a referendum or a test run of what is going to happen in 2029. So I think the Minister of Finance right now is really tired of waiting for things to be fixed in Johannesburg. So pretty much this particular headline tells us that the minister is really saying you have to shape up or ship out because we don't have time. Because if they don't fix up these things, obviously, as you already know, DA has already signaled that Helen Zille is likely to be a candidate for the mayoral candidate for DA in Joburg, and I think this really tells us a lot. That ANC cannot wait for that time to happen. They really need to act now, and they need to make sure that things are working before that time arrives.
And there seems to be a bit of pressure from what I read on the Sunday Times, and the pressure centers particularly around the issues of irregular, unauthorized, fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Did you get a sense that this is compounding on the pressure that's already on the mayor with regard to issues of basic service delivery in and around the city of Joburg?
Certainly, I think you've really captured exactly what the story is all about. Certainly, one of the key issues that are coming out is really issues around irregular expenditure, maladministration, but also, as you have already pointed out, issues to do again with, poor service delivery, which has always been an issue. And I know that South Africa has been dealing with a lot of service delivery protests for a long time. And Johannesburg is one such center where we have seen these kinds of things happen. So really, there's a lot that needs to be done by the mayor, but also by the MECs that also support him in his daily duties. But I think one thing that really needs to happen going forward is to make sure that the mayor not only fixes the financial issues, but also make sure that the people that are responsible for various portfolios, be it education, be it health, be it the transport, make sure that they do the work that they have to do. Otherwise, the situation is really not going to be good, and it's also likely to affect the performance of ANC as we head towards local government elections next year.
I don't know if you got to have a quick read through the other story that's right at the bottom of the front page of the Sunday Times, Prof. It has to do with the meeting of the National Executive Committee of the ANC and the venue. I saw a few people speculating about why the NEC is meeting out in Germiston at the Civic Center as opposed to their regular place, which is in Boksburg, thereabouts. We read there that there was a sense in which there was a bit of a discomfort at the original venue for this particular meeting, which was down in the south of Joburg in Omonde. And you glean a bit more detail about, things such as it would have been better if the coffee was there, if the coffee was good, and things like that. It got cold and uncomfortable, hence them moving from there to... Did you see that story?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And I also followed some social media
Yeah.
social media comments about that particular story where people are really saying if it is all about coffee, then then we have a problem, because ultimately the issue should not really about the comfort. Yes, comfort is important, but I
Yes.
think the issues that we are dealing with right now, issues to do with the 30% that has been put on South Africa by
Yeah.
the Trump administration, should be one of the key issues that we really need to be focusing on, rather than to focus on the issues that may be considered to be somehow peripheral, but also very important if you are
Yeah.
looking at the fact that it's cold out there in Johannesburg at the moment.
Creatures of comfort, I suppose. And that answers the question
Yes.
that many have, why they are at the Civic Center in Germiston instead of their regular venue. Let's move on to the Sunday Tribune and look at the front page there. They are leading with a story under the headline, KZN Cabinet in Balance as Premier probes MECs. Two MECs there, Prof, that are in a spot of bother. The one is the MEC of Education, and the other is the MEC of Health, both of them facing various probity issues. Tell me what you gleaned out of that story and the ability of the Premier Tamintuli to act against these two MECs after he asked them to explain themselves.
I think this story is very interesting in many aspects. Of course, again, it has to do again with, if you look at the broader political landscape, again, local government elections. But I think what is really coming up here is that we have two MECs here, one for health, one for education. And the issues at the center of this particular story has to do with issues to do with political interference, but also issues to do with personal enrichment, where certain kinds of kinds of tenders were awarded to companies that are somehow related to the people that are in question. So again, it raises a lot of issues in terms of the public serviceness that people bring when they come to these offices. Is it just about serving the public, or is it also a way to serve the personnel? And I think that's very important in terms of looking at it. But also the fact that the mayor or the MEC, the premier here has actually come out very clearly and say they have to explain themselves. I think this is very important. It really sends the right kind of signals that it's not tolerating any nonsense, it's not allowing people to get away with murder. Because if you've really been looking around issues to do with graft within the municipalities, I think several municipalities and several provinces have really been targeted in these particular issues. And I think it's very important that premiers that are tasked with these responsibilities should be seen to be acting, but also should be seen to be reading the right act when it really matters. And I think this is a call that is in the right direction for me.
Yeah. In fact, when I engaged the Premier a few days ago, he had indicated that these two MECs have got until Monday, which is tomorrow, to submit their own explanations of some of the issues, the conduct that is in question here. But I suppose the central question in that story is the strength of the Premier to act in what is maybe not so fragile a coalition, but a coalition nonetheless, given that whatever action he takes may or may not sit well with some of the coalition partners, in particular from the ANC, the party from which these two MECs are drawn.
Indeed, certainly, I think that's another very important issue, that it's a fractious kind of coalition government, and anything can happen. And I think it can actually be misread that you are literally targeting two people that are coming from ANC, and I think that can also create a lot of problems in terms of the durability, but also the sustainability of that coalition. But I think overall, I think we need to look at it in terms of looking at the public interest. I think the Premier is doing something that is often not fashionable, but are very important, especially in this kind of situation where we find ourselves. It's very important for premiers to be seen to be reading the Riot Act when people have gone out of line. And it's unfortunate that these people belong to the ANC. But I think overall, I certainly agree with what the NEC, the premier has done. And I think it should be seen in the right way, that he's trying to make sure that people account for the action that they have done and make sure that they remain within the remit of public service.
All right. Lastly, let's go to the Sunday World. And on their front page is a story that says, cops hacked Ramaphosa's inbox. For those who, I don't know, it's quite easy to lose track of some of these matters. These days, I think it's widely known that many South Africans call President Cyril Ramaphosa, they have this nickname where they call him Cupcake. In fact, it has become even internationally known. But the context of it perhaps is lost to many people. It stems back to a few years ago when his inbox was hacked and there were communications that had taken place there that were then revealed in the public. Tell me what you read into that story. It's on page 5, the actual story, page 5 of the Sunday World, and it cites a crime intelligence whistleblower giving a bit more detail of how that hack was undertaken.
Again, I think that's a very interesting story, again, which is in the public interest, because remember, during the run-up to that particular, presidential, elections within the ANC, one thing that came to mind was that there were so many issues that were being talked about. One was that the state security agents had actually been factionalized, but also there were also claims that also the police themselves were also playing a factional game. They were supporting different factions within the ANC. So the fact that now we are getting some of the issues to the center, that actually it was not only the state security agents that were involved in some of these issues. And remember, again, after he got into office, President Ramaphosa appointed what is now known as the Presidential Review or on the South African intelligence agents, state security agents. And I think what is coming out from this particular story ultimately is that it was not only that particular arm of the government that was involved, but actually the police. And I think again, it also tells us that sometimes when police can easily also take a factional side, especially in terms of these complex power dynamics that often play themselves out within the ruling party. And this is really concerning, but again, it tells us that more needs to be done. And I think again, it connects with the issue that has been doing the rounds around, Mkwanas, talking about political interference within the operations of the police, but also how the criminal syndicates have also managed to infiltrate the police. And again, it tells us a lot, but it's something that we really need to watch in terms of what the new Minister of Police, Prof. Kachalia, is going to do to try and deal with some of these issues that are coming to the fore.
All right, I've got to thank you for spending some time with us, just unpacking some of the stories that we are seeing on the front pages of the three main, remaining national Sunday newspapers. That's Professor Mare, who is head of the Department of Communication and Media in the Faculty of Humanities at the University of Johannesburg.